7 o'clock. Oh, you called to order the town board meeting for October 19, 2020. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Patrick, I saw we had a couple of consent agenda items that were added.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if it pleases the board, please add items 5A and 5J under your consent agenda. Park Board recommendation approving modifications to the restroom building and a conditional use permit calling a public hearing for November 16th.
Just a quick on this J for the liquor store.
Yes.
Is that going to the planning commission?
Yes.
Okay, so it'll be back in time for us. All right. Any other changes, deletions, or deletions? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve as amended.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Item 3 is payment of the bills. We had a little bookkeeping glitch, so we're going to table that till Friday's exec meeting.
Technical problem. I couldn't print out checks. Yes, we will delay that. Can we take action on our payables at the executive board meeting?
Well, let me ask a question. The only problem is the checks haven't been printed, right?
That's correct.
But all the bills you intend to pay are set.
That's correct.
I don't know why you couldn't approve it tonight. You approve the payments. Checks are just a mechanical thing.
It's comfort of the board, I suppose.
It's up to you. Yeah, it's up to the board. My point being is that if you approve, you're really approving the bills. The fact that checks haven't been issued to pay the bills, I'm not sure, that's a mechanical issue more than it is a substantive issue.
Patrick, explain to me this. They were all, everything's already itemized, ready to go, you just couldn't print them.
That's correct.
All right, Steve, you got a problem with that?
Well, from an audit, I'd prefer not to.
Okay. Then you can do it at the exec meeting on Friday. Just make a note that that's what they're tabling it till Friday's meeting.
So I should move to table the payment of the bills until the executive meeting, Friday, October, whatever it is,
23rd.
23rd.
It is a public meeting, so.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? All right, item number 4 is approval of the minutes of October 5th, 2020. I believe, Steve, you had some corrections that were taken care of?
Yes, on pages 2 and 5 of the minutes from the October 5th meeting.
Those changes were made, Mr. Chair.
Changes were made. Then I'll move to approve with my slight changes. They were just cosmetic word changes.
I will second those cosmetic changes.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, that motion carries. Item number 5, we've had 8, now we have 10 consent agenda items. If the board pleases to move along with these, unless someone wants to pull any off and discuss them, I'd look for a motion to approve.
I will move to approve the amended consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that motion carries. Moving on, item number 6 is old business. This is the emergency management team report.
Yes.
Now, don't tell me we have nothing to report.
I do. And it's mostly just for the board's own knowledge here and for something that we'll add to our agenda for our executive board meeting on Friday. We did have a COVID scare within staff, one step removed this last week, and we did have to close down our offices. I would ask that the board between now and Friday consider some operational changes as to how we should respond to those going forward, because I have a feeling that it's going to be kind of the new norm. And it's a disruption of business that's going to probably occur multiple times over the next 6 to 8 months.
Just a quick question. When we have things happen, where do we send, where do they go to get tested?
It's their own private.
Oh, okay, so there's no quick way of expediting that?
There are locations around Ramsey County that we could send staff to if we chose to. However, we would wait to see if there were positive tests to the relations of our staff, I guess. I don't think that's anything that we can demand of them, Chad, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right,
So,
can't.
Has this been a topic with your contract group?
Yes.
And
So far, they're just kind of reacting to it on a case-by-case basis. We've had a couple of municipalities that have closed because of it. Others have just chosen to send the employees home until further confirmation. So it's kind of all over the board, and I want us to have a consistent approach to it. So whatever ideas you want to bring Friday, I'd love to hear them.
Well, I'll give you my thought before Friday, which is really the emergency management team that the town board put in place
Yes.
to deal with this. I think it involved the chair and your staff.
Yep.
Me, that is the right group to make a recommendation to the entire town board to figure out what to do with it, for consistency.
Okay.
And that's, I feel comfortable with that group making a recommendation. Because I don't know,
I guess I'd like some input. Because, I mean, this is going to be an issue with serving constituents and residents going forward, especially over the next, like I said, half a year or so.
I agree.
And and most of the approaches around the area have been, as is everything with COVID-19, different from one city to the next. And I want to fashion something that takes into consideration our small staff, the atmosphere of our community, and what the residents would understand. And I think you guys as elected officials can probably help us
Sure.
nail something down.
I mean, I think it's fair for all employees to know what our policy is, because if it's something that isn't communicated, that might lead to not even discussing it, that there is an element within their family that may have been exposed, and that puts more people at risk, because I don't know what's going to happen, so therefore I say nothing. And that's not a good approach.
That's a bad approach too.
So I don't disagree with you. I'm just thinking that a policy should be in place. I'm just not sure if we can decide it on Friday, but I'm willing to talk about it as part of the.
Well, our biggest challenge is going to be how we set up a policy that is spur of the moment.
Yeah.
Because these things, we don't get a warning.
Well,
All of a sudden, we've got somebody coming in saying, I've been exposed, and it's, right now, we have to make a decision, so.
Yeah.
But as a thought, can we reach out to the Minnesota Department of Health and look for if they have any guidelines that might help assist us before Friday?
Chad, were you going to say something? I can respond to that.
go ahead, respond
Okay.
first.
Our other scare that we had back in the spring, I directly consulted with Department of Health specifically on sending staff home. And they agreed with that approach, but that was 5 months ago.
Sure. And there's been new information,
There has
more
been.
information. I just think at least, if I say it on Friday, I'd say it tonight, I'll say it again on Friday. I think we should at least find out if they have any conversation, thoughts, and make our own decision based off the science.
I was simply going to say that you need to be consistent,
Yes.
need to be clear and transparent, and a spur of the moment is, you definitely want to avoid that. But I think you should be able to set up, after you talk to the Minnesota Department of Health, you should be able to set a policy now as what you're going to do. I mean, the fact is, no one knows what's going on.
So I would also suggest before Friday that maybe you put a call into the Minnesota Association of Townships,
Okay.
because they've been doing their COVID little thing, and
Yes.
get as much a perspective as possible, and then we can talk about it on Friday. That would be my thoughts.
That's actually a good point, because a lot of townships have a whole lot smaller staff.
Yes.
And they totally get shut down.
It would be a good source.
Okay, I will check both of those. I'll put together a memo consisting of those two conversations, and then I'll submit it to you Friday, and we can go from there.
And as a third choice, maybe you could, Minnesota the League of Cities, they may have a commentary also that they've went through. Do you think so?
I don't think they do.
Okay.
I think they leave it in, and that's why the shotgun approach around the area. I think they leave it up to the auspices of the municipality, which I don't know.
I mean, that's the way we dealt with everybody, who's Shoreview shutting totally down, and White Bear doing something different, White Bear Township
Yeah.
doing something different.
There isn't a consistent approach. So,
Okay.
All right, Chad, you got anything else with the governor's response?
Well, yeah, the governor extended his executive order till November 15th. But he did indicate that, this is one of the first times, I think, I should take that back, but he made it clear that if both houses of our legislature would vote to rescind it, that's what's going to happen. But I don't know. if
good
they're-
luck with that.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. But I think that's the first time they've ever actually made that, really
think you're
brought
right.
that up.
What's the over-under on that happening?
Yeah, I'll take the under.
Yeah.
All right, anything else under emergency management?
No, Mr. Chair, that'll do it for now.
All right, moving on, item 7, we have a public hearing for the 2020-1 Street Improvement Project. Looking at my agenda here, I think we still need to waive the reading. Notice it's been properly published, it's not on here, but do I have a motion for that?
I'll move to waive the public notice, and it was properly published in the White Bear Press.
Second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And then I need a motion to open the public portion of the hearing.
I'll move to open the public portion of the hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, Larry, you gonna go through this for us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. I have a short PowerPoint presentation to go through to talk about this project before we talk with the public about their comments.
After we get done with Larry's presentation, if any of the residents want to comment, you have to come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, so,
They also, I believe, have to put it in writing.
well, that's if they object.
Yes.
Okay. All right,
Okay, so I'm going to go through a few, kind of first of a location map as a reminder of where we're looking at here tonight. Some photos, some before and after photos, then get into project costs, assessments, funding, and our requested actions tonight. If the town board would recall, we have the southeast area, which includes Homewood, Lakewood, Glen Oaks, Forest Court, Summit Lane, Hill Air, and Arbor Drive. And these aren't going to show up the greatest here, but there's some existing photos. We had some edge failures on the roadway. We had a lot of patching and cracking along on the street itself. The biggest issue we saw when we started the project was the drainage in this neighborhood was really tough. You can see the picture here at the top. There was a lot of drainage issues around driveways and areas. Another picture of edge failures. So this summer, the project was under construction, and the paving was completed last week, kind of just in the nick of time for the weather. The restoration was completed, and you can see on this photo on the bottom, the grass is already starting to grow in those areas, but yeah, in some cases, we widened the road in areas. We added curb and gutter, if you recall, added storm sewer pipe and structures to accommodate the drainage, which we feel was a great improvement to this neighborhood. And I just have one more picture, and this picture shows the end of, or Lakewood at the curve with Arbor, and there was a little bit of widening on this section of roadway. One of the things we tried with our design and our construction was to avoid retaining walls. That was a concern of the residents when we started this project, and we were able to do that. You can see 2 retaining walls here on the edge that we were able to work around. And then this corner was a kind of a site issue with vehicles trying to make that corner and not seeing around the corner. So that area got cleaned up a bit, and you can kind of see that difference there. So overall, from a construction standpoint, we felt the project went really smoothly. The contractor was really good. He worked really hand in hand with our construction inspector, and was able to get through this project. There was some additional work to cut out poor soils, which added some costs here, and we had a change order that was brought to the board a couple meetings ago that we talked about then. But even with that change order, you can see the project costs came in about $750,000 under what we were originally estimating. The feasibility report estimate we had just over $3 million in costs, and the project came in about $2.3 million. So on the construction side of things, costs came down. We got a tremendous bid when we went out for bid on the project. But then also our indirect costs, and the indirect costs are the engineering, the bonding costs, the publication costs, legal, and all that. And that came in quite a bit under as well. So that helps as well. So bottom line, we had a project cost less than we were expecting. And the township hasn't completed a project of this nature for a number of years. And so when we started with this feasibility report estimate, we weren't quite sure how contractors would react in the township with costs. So we maybe erred on the higher side to make sure we were planning for the worst and hoping for the best. In order to specially assess for projects of this nature, we need to follow a very specific process laid out in statute, the Minnesota State Statutes 429 process, and we have to hold a number of public hearings, including the original public hearing, and then this assessment hearing. And so here's a couple of here's the number of steps we need to take, including approval of the plans, accepting the bids, and then coming to the area in blue here for tonight, holding the final assessment public hearing and adopting the assessment roll. And that's where we're here tonight. So a couple project assessment details I'd like to talk about. The assessments are levied to those that are benefiting from the project itself, and we classify that as those that have their driveway access onto the project. And in this case, this assessment is a unit assessment. So every parcel is assessed 1 unit. Now, of course, there is some other things as well. For corner lots, they're assessed a half unit for each improved side. So if a property abuts County Road F, for example, and they have their driveway on Lakewood, they would be assessed a half unit because their other side is on County Road F. For another property that might be interior in the neighborhood, a property at for example, Summit and Arbor, they have 2 improved sides. They have Arbor is improved and Summit. So they would equal a total of 1 unit. There is one property that is subdividable, and that property is assessed 2 units. Historically, the town has assessed the full cost of the improvement, or as much of the cost as they can legally do that. But we have to, again, follow state statutes where we can only assess up to the benefit received on the project. In this case, we believe the benefit is $11,000 per unit. The minimum amount we can assess is 20% per statute. So 20% of the costs need to be assessed to receive the bonding that we are getting for this project. So kind of our spectrum of assessments are 20% up to the benefit for $11,000. So this table kind of shows our original feasibility report estimate and the assessable costs. And so we have costs that were for the storm sewer work, the water main, surface water main work, the surface sanitary work. Those aren't part of the assessable portion of the project. The Accessible units, I think I mentioned, is 114 units on this project. If you assess the $11,000, that's $1.254 million. In this case, we would be assessing over a 10-year period, and we have an interest rate of 3.5% on the project. If the town board elects to assess that $11,000, here's a sample payment schedule or amortization schedule. If it's $11,000 at 3.5% interest, here's how it would lay out on your taxes if you do not pay down or pay off the assessment. So the principal stays consistent each year over the 10 years, $1,100, and then the interest fluctuates as you pay off principal that you're paying down. That you have less interest to pay each year as you make your way through the 10 years. And so you can see the annual amounts here start at $1,581, and then the final year, $1,138.50. Now, we can talk more about kind of the payment of that. Whatever assessment is levied here tonight, property owners have 30 days to pay that off without interest, or pay it down. If you have the money to pay part of it, but don't want to pay all of it, you can certainly do that within this first 30-day window. So by November 18th, if you want to pay it down or pay it off, you can do that without having any interest accrued. If you do nothing, or with the remaining portion, then get certified to Ramsey County on November 30th, and then it gets added to the property tax that you'd pay for the next 10 years. So getting into funding, again, our original estimate, $3 million, just over $3 million. We had assessments of $1,254,000 at that $11,000 per unit rate, and you could see what that did to the township funds, and the water fund, sanitary, and storm sewer funding. Of course, we mentioned we received a great bid on the project, and we had less indirect costs, and so we're in a position where we could deviate from that. And so if you did that, the $1.254 million of assessments represented 41% of the project costs. Now, if you stayed at that percentage, that assessment would be then $946,200, or $8,300 per unit. And you can see what that does to the township funds. The township funds, if we move to 8,300, would be $864,000. If we stayed at the $11,000, it would be $556,275. And then you can also see the different, the comparison of the original and the final water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater funding. So tonight, requested action is to hold the public hearing, take public input, and as was mentioned, if you disagree with the assessment proposed here, if you do that, you need to put that in writing and submit it to the town board before.
Or papers, front desk there, if anybody wants to do it there.
Yep, there's paper there to be used if you do want to appeal the amount assessed. Sure, or if you have a prepared, something prepared you could turn in.
Yes,
Um,
that's right.
Yeah, and Chad, you can chime in here, but it's,
That's correct, Larry.
you write, I appeal the assessment of this town board, and write your name, your address, and sign it.
If you have your tax identification number, PIN number, add that too if you have it. But that's not going to hurt if you don't have it.
So I think tonight is we hear the public testimony and the town board deliberates on an assessment amount. I think we want to consider consistency for this project to future projects. We have other projects slated in this area, the southeast area, south of County Road F. And, you know, we may not get such a great bid next year. We don't obviously don't know. So it's something to consider that we want to be prepared and try to be consistent, whether that's a consistent percentage of the project or a consistent amount that you feel comfortable assessing on this project, that, we go forward to the next project. This is the first time we've done this in a number of years, and we just want to move forward, kind of being consistent between projects, so.
All right, does the board have any questions of Larry before we open it up to the public?
Larry or Chad, you mentioned the assessment is based on value. For the public, explain a little bit about how we arrived at, quote, $11,000. When it went into that value.
Before, as part of the original process, a appraiser was hired to review the project and take a look at the properties, not each individual property, but look at the overall neighborhoods and determine how much the value of each of an average home in the area would increase, or average property actually would increase due to this improvement. And as long as the amount you assess stays at or below the appraiser's presumed increase in value, it's a proper assessment.
So if someone disputes that 11,000, how would they, what finding of facts would they have to have?
Well, basically how it works is this, is you have to, each party, the township and the citizen would hire an appraiser, their own opposing appraisers, and they would each submit
Specifically to their property.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, once you get to the appeal process, each party will actually appraise that property individually. Right now, it was a general review of the entire neighborhood. It's not cost effective when you do an assessment to actually appraise each individual property initially. It just doesn't work that way.
So the improvements take into effect, obviously, the new roadway, the distribution of stormwater, any other amenities that go along with that as part of the overall appraisal
Yeah, overall benefit,
benefit, yeah.
and therefore increase in value.
Anything else, Steve?
No.
Scott, anything?
Question I had, Larry, is I know that we came in well under what was bid, even though we had one add-on, I can't remember the term that you called.
Change order?
Change order. Are we pretty confident we won't have any more?
Yes, and the project is paved, the restoration has occurred. We now will, in the spring, we'll walk the project and look for any cracked curb or issues or cracked driveway panels. But if that occurs, that's on the contractor to repair at no cost to the township. It's a warranty item. So we feel very confident that the cost before you are the final
Okay.
cost.
All right. That was my question.
Well, back before any of us were on the board, the township's position was always mainly to assess 100% of these projects. And the cost of construction and roads has gotten so expensive, the board has tried to rationalize a fair method to get these prices down. because some of these projects are very expensive. We're fortunate to get lower bidding now, but that's not always the case. From 100%, if we get down to 40 or 50, that's a huge improvement, but seeing as how we did receive favorable bidding, and I think this board can still do a little bit better on that 11,000, but now holding with some sort of formula so we don't box ourselves in and set some sort of, basically a roadmap for the next project, we have to also be careful on how we discount this price too. So I don't know if there's a fair or equitable way of doing that. I mean, if you drop it down to 83, that runs the township cost up 300 and some $1,000. Now, whether that, and obviously, eventually, we're going to get to the point where everybody in the township's going to pay for all the roads. That's just the fact, because not everybody can just pay for their own road. It's too expensive. So as we get to the point where we start decreasing the percentages, township picks up more costs, everybody in the town starts paying for more of the roads, which is probably eventually more an equitable, because everybody in the township uses township roads. Now, in little areas like this, it's pretty private, but on the whole, if you live in the township, you're on a township road. So I don't know, do you have I'm not saying a magic wand, but do you have some sort of floor plan that we can use going forward on this because of the favorable costs on the construction?
Yeah, I think you made a lot of good points there. It would be nice if it was a percentage that we just apply to every project, whether it's 50%, 45%, something that we can apply to other projects. It would be helpful if we did that. But I think around the 10,000-ish per unit is a lot of what I've seen in other projects in other communities.
So, if you're looking for some kind of a formula to base an historical precedence on, to look back going forward with probably 8 or 9 more years of these projects that we have, I think, and Chad, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the board statutorily has the authority to decide what the percentage is based upon each individual project.
That's correct. It's how you divide the cost between the resident and the township. That's a policy issue. It's not mandated by statute in any manner whatsoever. You have the ability to change it from project to project. Though I appreciate the fact that you want to be consistent, but you do have that right to change it from one project to the next.
Well, these projects will never be consistent because some of them, like you say, take more groundwork. Some of them, starting with a dirt road we got coming up, is not exactly a common thing in the township. So all these things have specifics, but in the long run, we also want to be fair to all the residents at the same time also. But I think that's where we get into using favorable bidding to help decrease the cost of the assessment.
And that worked this year.
Yeah,
Very well.
and you never know, that may continue next year, you don't know.
But 8, 9 years down the road, it might not be the case.
No, it could be just the opposite.
Now,
We might not be doing projects because we can't afford them.
Right. We did learn something today from the township's finance officer regarding the spectrum of potential assessments, the $8,300 that Larry's talked about here, the maximum that was set at $11,000. The board has every right and authority to go within that range of what you want to do with assessments, with the maximum amount being $11,000. Now, if you're taking the percentage of what the projects came in as, and you want to apportion that directly to what the assessments should be reduced to, if that's what you want to do, that's great. The other thing you need to consider, and it's just, I want you guys to know everything that you should know, is that if you did set the assessments for the maximum of $11,000, you got the project costs here, and you've got funding that's up here. Tom informed us today that legally what those funds would be used for would be to replenish whatever utility funds that we're using to get the project going. So whatever water, sewer, stormwater funds that are being used to put these projects together, whatever comes above what you need for the project will go right back into those. So just keep that in mind.
To be used for other projects.
Infrastructure.
Yep, once they've been put back into those funds, yes.
All right, any other questions of Larry or the attorney or Patrick?
I guess not a question, but just a reaffirmation when you made the comment that eventually we may get to more of a cost sharing. It's really, if it's not directly assessed, it goes into the tax levy.
Yeah,
To be,
Yes.
to be really upfront about it. It's paid either directly by the affected properties or it's paid by everybody. So if the assessments go down, the tax levy could be impacted as well.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
All right, here are no other questions. I look for a motion to open up for public comment.
I'll move to open the hearing up for public comment.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And like I stated, if you have any comments or questions, please approach the podium, your name, your address.
Hi, I'm Jessica Faust. I'm at 2661 Arbor Drive. And so first of all, before I even get into the assessment, I just want to say my husband Michael and I were very pleased with how this project went. We loved the text messages. It kept us on track. We knew where we were going to get our mail, all that kind of things, what day we could and couldn't get out of the driveway. So just want to compliment, I guess, both the contractor, the engineer, and the leadership team that put that all together and all that communications. Thank you for that. Also, wanted to say thank you to Pat because we reached out when we got the assessment information and had a couple questions trying to understand how this all works, and he got back to us very quickly with some great information. So just want to recognize you for thank you for helping us out
And
with
he
that.
actually made it understandable?
It was pretty
She didn't say that.
It was pretty understandable. The one thing I wanted to bring up tonight is I would encourage the supervisors to just consider, as we look at a $750,000 saving from the estimate to the bid that came in, look at, how that could reduce the assessment. I was surprised, which is why I initially reached out to Pat to see that, in the May minutes, I knew that we had saved nearly $1 million, and then to see the same assessment come, it was a little disheartening to say that we have all this savings, and yet none of it's going to be passed on. And just my quickie math, seeing that we had 114 units, I believe, and a $750,000 savings, if you were to apportion that over the 114 units, that's a $6,600 difference to each unit. And so that's something that I would ask you to consider as you talk about consistency. And I hear the way that you're talking about it, but the other thing that I would ask you to consider is consistency of how much township funds are going into each neighborhood. Because if you keep our assessment higher with the idea that other projects might come in with a higher bid, that does mean that less general township funds go into our neighborhood and more general township funds proportionally go into other neighborhoods potentially that come in with higher bids and have similar assessments. So my ask would be that with this information, that the assessment is reduced as much as possible. I don't know that, I would love to see it reduced by the full 6,600. I don't know that that's a reasonable ask here tonight, but I would ask that you reduce that as much as possible, return that, or reduce, it's not even returning our money, it's reduce the burden that the 114 of us in this great little township neighborhood will have to pay. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm Danielle Cezanne, 4186 Homewood Avenue, and she's very eloquent and well-spoken, but I don't understand this thing with assessments. We just had one 2 years ago, and you ripped up the street 3 times. This is the 3rd year in a row that you've ripped it up, and it was like a mess the last time, which I came to one of these meetings and said, my street's a mess, and you already worked on the water and sewer, and you're assessing the maximum amount to us, not even considering COVID. People are losing their jobs. My husband's disabled, $1,900 a month, and it's like his share is $5,500. Are you kidding? That's like, it's a tremendous amount of income. To say, oh, my curb looks so much better, I don't even care. I mean, I have so many financial problems right now, it's ridiculous. And then it's just like, I heard people in the Otter Lake area, they have protested against paying the assessment and they didn't have to. I don't know if that, but it's a very honorable person that was on the school board, so I know that was true. And it's like you're assessing us the maximum. I mean, I don't even get that. And this is the second assessment. My mortgage went up, my taxes went up, and if we can't afford to do this stuff through our taxes, then we shouldn't have done it. But I know why, it's for the lake links. And so there will be a lot of traffic. Everything's gonna be rerouted because it's one way, so now it's gonna come up our streets. Since people have been home on COVID, it's like my little quiet tree area is like a freeway now with people just zipping around. So isn't that true? The cars will be rerouted because it's one way.
Right now, it has not been decided if it's one way.
Well-
That is not a definite yet.
Seems like there's a lot of a push from people with money that
Maybe,
really
but
wanna
The town
have
has
that.
not made any decisions on one way.
But I still just can't even believe it. Everyone I talk to, they don't get assessments all the time like this. This is the second one. I mean, the first one, it was like, okay, and someone got up saying, well, if I had $1 million, I'd share it with everybody. I couldn't believe it. It's like, do you pay people to come here? I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, I mean, who's got that kind of money? $11,000?
Larry, what was the other assessment for?
You know, and then
In
the
that area?
maximum, that's the worst thing. Like, oh, let's hit them with the maximum.
What-
And all the houses are kind of crappy. I hate to tell you, they used to be like little cabins for the lake. I mean, there's a few really nice ones. I don't know what yours looks like, but there's like a whole bunch of junky little houses, and it's like, increased our value, that'll only increase our taxes too, right? As soon as my value increases, then my taxes are gonna go up again. You know, it's like, I'm too old to have this, you know, tax, and my husband's dying. He is actually literally dying. And it's like, you know, he's not gonna be able to ride a bike on a bike path. I mean, he's not even gonna live to pay this tax.
Larry, do you know what that assessment was for in that area?
That assessment a couple of years ago was for the sanitary sewer improvements lining. Now, the sewer work we did here
Was
on
that
this
a-
project
was
was
that a
just,
lining?
is lining, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still 3 years in a row. And one time I'm home, the one time I'm home in like 20 years, every day it was like just a mess of construction. And I never got a text. They told us where our mailbox was, and neither did my neighbors because we were wandering around our neighborhood. Where's our mail? Which we think got stolen because it was really remarkable how nobody got mail for days, you know, as we were looking for our mailbox. And I didn't know that they had a blank board. There was never any information on that board like there is Old White Bear Avenue. So it's just, we never heard about that kind of stuff.
Well, did you follow it on the website? It was pretty well posted.
I guess I could have called in on the website, but I just go out and talk to some guys, like, hey, what's
But
happening?
part of the thing is you gotta remember, White Bear Township is a unique community. We've got really old cottages and really old narrow roads, and then we have all brand-new developments with $600,000 townhomes. So it's a mixture of a lot of things, so we can't neglect one road because it's just got, you know, cottages, so we have to, we have to keep our structures are falling apart. We really are trying to catch up right now because, like you said, our sewer liners, that's almost a necessity. If we don't keep up with that, we're gonna have faults, breaks, backups,
Yeah.
all that stuff creates more problems, so we have to stay on
But you can't
top
just
of
keep
it.
assessing things, and it's like, oh, now we need a bike path, here's another 20,000 next year. I mean, it's like, what is up with that? And I talked to all my other friends, nobody's even had assessments ever, like in Plymouth and Maple Grove
Well,
and,
if you live on a county road, you don't see assessments. That's the secret, and there's a lot of county roads in the township. Part of the reason why we're battling with the one-way on South Shore Boulevard. If that goes to a one-way, that comes back to the township. It is no longer a county road. So anybody who lives on that road will be assessed.
well, they
Now,
should
whether
be
they know
assessed
that or
everywhere.
not,
These people live in million-dollar mansions, they pay taxes, it should come out of there. Everybody uses these roads, even for walking their dogs. It's not just you know, we live here, so we drive up here. There's millions of people, especially if it goes one way. People, you know, it's hard to get out because the streets are just blocked. Everybody knows how, you know, you can only get in a certain way. It's not like we have through streets, we have tiny cottage streets.
and that's why we're having this meeting tonight, to establish that number. That number originally at 11 was to cover all our expenses. Our expenses came in cheaper, and I think this board will reflect that number?
Still, the maximum amount you could charge us than you did, and it's during
No,
COVID.
no, they haven't charged you anything.
We haven't
Yes.
put a number on this yet.
Well, the,
Okay.
okay, understand, under the law, before the project really started, the board had to establish a maximum assessment they could charge. They
Okay.
don't have to charge it, they could charge it.
Well, okay.
See, they can, there's one last point. The board can always go down from that original assessment. It can't go up.
Okay.
And that's the problem with that, when you're doing projects this size, and you are making an estimate of costs. You see, this time around, the cost came in your favor. Doesn't always work that way. So no, that's why it was at 11,000, because that was
It's been
the,
better not to have new curbs for me. I mean, sorry, I don't have any money. I don't know who's got 11,000 bucks sitting in their pocket. I mean, my gosh. I don't know what you do for a living, but, you know, once you have a illness and you can't work anymore, it's really rough.
All right, anyone else?
I'm Austin Holmes. I live at 4105 Lakewood Avenue. And I did just want to make a comment too about, because we are on a corner street on County Road F in Lakewood. And we have been given notice that we also will be getting an assessment for County Road F as of next year, because they plan on resurfacing that road as well. And so I don't know if that's accurate, but that's what we
You
received
won't be
from
getting an
Ramsey
assessment from the
County.
county.
No.
So who will be, would Township be picking up the bill from Ramsey County then, or how does
No.
that work?
The county takes care of their own roads. They pay for the whole thing.
As an example, they just did Bald Eagle boulevards on the whole length all the way to the county line and County Road H2. There was no assessments to individual property owners on the county road.
Because it comes out of the Ramsey
It comes out
County
of your tax. fund.
right, statutorily, I don't believe counties have the ability to assess.
No.
Only municipalities do.
So I'm not sure where you got that information.
So it's just us.
In fact, you probably only got a half assessment, right? Because of the-
Yeah, you're
Correct.
probably, you know.
So I might have some bad information there or what, but we did get something in the mail from Ramsey County saying something about an assessment for future improvements on the road.
That's
So
I
interesting.
have no idea what that would be.
If you,
Did they,
if you could share that letter, I mean,
Yeah,
we'd be
we'd
glad
like-
to see it,
I'd like
because
to see
I,
it.
I'd like to see
I'll
it
have
too,
to
yeah.
try and find it and maybe bring it to the next meeting, but also with the savings and the budget and finding a common, you know, ground for everyone to pay as a whole in the township for projects like this in the future. I know we're kind of the first one to happen for a while, but I don't think that, you know, it should fluctuate so much depending on the project and what the actual owners pay. I think there should be, you know, kind of what you guys are talking about, a set percentage, whether that be, you know, 50%, which in my opinion, I feel like is a little absurd to expect of the residents, but, you know, maybe 30% or, you know, whatever it is, but it should be something that is set. Especially, you know, I know this is a maximum assessment that you had to choose before the project started, you know, but as residents, you know, knowing what we are expected to be paying for things like this should be already established, in my opinion. Before projects are started and completed, you know, we should know what we are being billed for it. That way we know what, you know, I don't feel like that is a absurd request, just for future, you know, things and assessments. And also, you know, as far as the savings go, I know that Township had budgeted, you know, almost 3 million. We obviously came in well below that for the costs, and I feel like with a percentage, you know, chosen on projects for residents to be, you know, paying, it should go off of the total cost of the project, not, you know, what we were bidded at. You know, it should be the final cost. You know, residents pay 30% of final cost, and that should be it. And there's no, you know, no wishy-washy or gray water areas. You know, everyone kind of knows what to expect.
Well, the biggest thing with the township, we are on a different playing field than the cities. We don't get state aid. Well, we get it. It's like $13?
Yeah,
whereas neighboring communities get $1 million, $1.5 million, and that really helps supplement their road projects. If we had that, even half of that funding, these things would be way less intrusive on residents. But we just don't get it. We don't qualify because we're a township. I love the township to death, but they penalize us because of that. Now, we've been working on this for a couple of years. We get close, then we get far, then we get, and we're trying to rectify that situation. And that in the long run too will help these road projects. But for now, that's why we struggle with every one of these, because it's either right out of the township funds or out of the affected property owners. So it's a balancing act that we're playing right now. And I understand, and that's why we're really struggling with this to try to make it fair and equitable, albeit I don't think we can rubber stamp every project because they're all a little bit different, so. But we're doing our best.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just would, like you to hear what I'm saying as well, as residents, to have something more solid to expect when projects like these come up.
Well, and that's why we appreciate all you guys' input.
So, thank you.
One thing, and I'll make this comment, we're all residents too, and that, what you just said is a true statement, and that's why when it used to be 100% of the cost, the feeling of the board seemed to be, let's just kick it down the road. Well, how long can you kick these projects down the road? And our infrastructure goes, your property values go down, contrary to what we might think. We can't live in a deteriorated state, so we had to make a decision to go on this long road project. And I, as one board member, wanted to come up with what you're saying, come to a more palatable resolution of a percentage. We just got to get there. So.
All right, anyone else? Comments, questions?
Sure, why not? Hi, I'm Jan Barnes, and I am at 4223 Homewood Avenue, and have been there about 4 years now. So, one, yes, I do agree, the roads needed to be improved. They were in horrible shape, and South Shore, I've even had friends come over and say, that's the worst road I think I've ever driven on. So, hopefully, one of these days that will get addressed as well. The unfortunate part is the costs, and again, I guess I share with my neighbors the estimated cost of $3,051,387, dropping down to $2,303,000. When we first started hearing about this project, the estimated assessment was $11,000, and that was based off of the $3 million figure. So in a lot of aspects, I feel that it's only fair that if the township is benefiting, that I think the residents also need to benefit along with that. The other thing too that I'm still perplexed on in how we're assessing this is by number of units versus number of lots that each house sits on. A larger house that sits on 2 lots is going to have more people coming and going, and they're going to have a higher appraised value. So I would also like to see a copy of how the appraiser that's hired for these developments and these projects comes up with the ballpark number of $11,000 on a neighborhood where you've got a $150,000 cottage and then maybe a $300,000 mid-priced home, up to a $500,000 house that sits on the corner that's being assessed half of what the $150,000 cottage is. Because to me, in the real estate world, it's based by square footage, number of bedrooms, number of baths, size of the lot. It's not based off of, well, there's maybe going to be a few more people leaving out of this bigger home, and maybe there'll be more people living at.
But do you understand how literally complicated that would be on every one of our projects? We even tried running foot. If this one had 50 feet and that one had 150 feet. Mm-hmm. It gets so convoluted, we would still be on our first road project, trying to figure it out down to that scientific, that. So
well, but I would say the percentage of the project would be based off of property tax value.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may, in addition to what we talked about for the increase in value,
Mm-hmm.
the assessment also has to pass constitutional muster. And that, one of those, and part of that test is uniformity. In fact, I think it was, I'm trying to think, 10, maybe 15 years ago, the town did conduct meetings on assessment policy, for future assessment policy. So what you're seeing here is actually a result of the policy that was adopted by a prior board. But it was adopted by the board based on the law at that time, and that's still the same law. So I understand what you're saying about 2 lots versus 1 lot, but there's a requirement of uniformity, and part of that decision was the fact that it's not so much based on the square footage of your lot, it's so much based on how many houses. For example, one example was a property that's on a large lot or even large acreage. It's 1 house, but are they benefited any more than a house on a small lot in terms of being able to use a road? And that's one of the considerations, a legal consideration that had to be taken into account. So that's why it's done on a unit basis. There has to be a certain uniformity for constitutional purposes, for legal purposes.
But a house that's 4,000 square feet will have more people living in it than a house that's 900 square feet.
Not if you're an empty nester.
But you've had them there, and they've been driving in and out of those roads every day, whereas somebody that lives in a smaller house, there's maybe going to be 1 or 2 people.
I understand what you're saying, and I got to tell you, that was taken into account when the policy was adopted. And again, the policy has to be, has to match what the law requires, and uniformity is one of the requirements.
So then, wouldn't it be ironic that $11,000 is the same amount that this appraiser came up with for a development in a street project similar to ours in Maple?
As I said before, they didn't appraise each individual property. They had to they appraised entire neighborhoods. That's simply because of cost. I mean, an appraiser per property is not cheap. And that would have just increased your cost that much more if we had done that. That's
So if
why.
I pay for an appraiser to appraise
Can I
mine?
say one thing? That's why you're allowed to appeal your assessment if you want.
Okay.
Because if you believe that your property wasn't benefited to the extent of the assessment, you have the right to challenge that. That's why the legislature created the ability to appeal. Because then we start looking at each individual project. I mean, I know what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. But it just isn't feasible to appraise each individual property at the time the assessment is originally created. I should say, it's not cost-effective. But, you still have the right to, you still have the right to appeal.
Not for the residents.
Well, the township is the residence, so you gotta remember that.
Our residents. Pay for it one way or another.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. So, yeah, and again, too, I found it just really ironic that this neighborhood in Maplewood, somehow, they had the same feasible assessment of $11,000 that we do in White Bear Township. And it's a less desirable neighborhood,
Well, but apples to apples
so how
communities,
does-
two communities that could be totally different.
That's all I want to know. Show me the numbers.
I guess the question is then, is it just a coincidence, or is it that we use the same number? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm guessing it's a
I know
coincidence?
this is the first time that White Bear Township has done this, but has anybody here been involved in other projects?
Actually, no, it's
Like
not.
this?
Every single project that I've been involved in, we have ordered appraisals before the assessment is even considered to determine whether or not it's feasible. Because if the town were to adopt an assessment that is not supportable, then the town, there's 2 problems with that. First of all, the town may be approving a project it can't pay for, because keep in mind that for each successful appeal made by a citizen, by a resident, the difference has to be paid for by the town. So if the town doesn't accurately determine the increase in value, the town could be facing a rather substantial financial problem, because it's going to pay that difference.
Which would be dispersed among the residents again, so.
Yeah.
This is why we do all this before we start. This is why we hold to that number till we're done, and that's why we're here tonight. Because that number is gonna move. We don't know how much yet, but it's gonna move.
Okay. Well, again, I would just like to voice my opinion and share it, because again, I don't feel that it's fair that I pay the same as the guy down the street that has 2.5 lots, runs a business in what I would deem a junkyard out of his house.
And we've had these discussions.
That's
For as long as I've been on
And
this
I
board.
see all of this junk going in and out, and it's parked on my curbs going in and out, that I'm just paying the same amount that he probably is paying as well. Actually, I don't even think he's paying it, because his mom owns it. You know, so again, I don't feel that it's fair to the residents that are trying to keep their houses up, maintain their houses, present nicely, that we pay the same as someone that's maybe running a junkyard in our neighborhood, and I can't quite figure out how they get away with that either, but
That's another issue.
another
completely.
topic.
But we appreciate your input.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Might as well add something, being the last one. Lynn Taylor at 4111 Lakewood Avenue. And I would just like to ask also that you would consider lowering the amount that you are assessing each of our properties. And I don't know with the 3.5% interest, if that's competitive now. I mean, a lot of interest rates have gone down lately for taking out loans, so I don't know if that's competitive right now or if that's high. But if too many people can't pay this and then move out, that's kind of a negative thing too. I've already seen quite a number of for sale signs. I was also glad to hear you say that they're still coming back to fix driveways, because we do have a chunk that's coming out of our driveways. So anyway, I just wanted to add that I hope that you can reduce that assessment for each individual homeowner.
Right.
And,
Thank you,
I
Lynn.
will say that I felt really good about the construction crew. I thought that they were very pleasant, and I mean, I watched them every day when they, on Lakewood, they did a lot of back and forth, but I felt overall they did a good job, really good job. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. All right, anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I would just remind those of you that have remained here that before you leave tonight, no matter what the decision of what the assessment is to please, if you still want to appeal it, sign up on our sheet there before you leave, so.
Don't take this the wrong way, but you've got to do that. Statutorily, if you do not appeal the assessment before the assessment is adopted, you don't have the right to appeal it afterwards. That's jurisdictional, as the court puts it.
Just leave it there and I grab it and file it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then what happens?
Well, then, what you have to do is this. If you appeal the assessment, you want to appeal your assessment, then within 30 days of the date the assessment is adopted, so assume it's adopted tonight, within 30 days of today's date, you have to serve notice on the town clerk, and then 10 days after that, you have to file that notice of appeal with the district court. Failure to do any of that is a jurisdictional defect, and the case would be thrown.
If you want proper guidance on that, just come see us at Township Hall and
Yeah.
we'll help you out.
Yeah.
Is Township Hall open during this pandemic?
Oh, yeah, we have
Do we
been.
have to make an appointment or anything?
No, no.
Yeah,
Subject
but the
to.
30 days, that's really important. You know, make sure you do that within 30 days, and then 10 days after that.
Scott, you
Subject
said-
to any other scares where
course.
there's potential.
Health and safety. Yeah.
All right, hearing no other comments, I'm going to ask for a motion to close the public comment portion.
I'll move to close the public comment portion of the hearing.
I will second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, all opposed? All right, what is the pleasure of the board? We've heard a bunch of numbers bounced around. We know we can do better than 11. I don't know what your thoughts are on any kind of percentages, or you guys got a number in mind? Working off of what, as we drop that number, our township costs increase. It's too bad, maybe Tom Kelly could help us a little bit on that, but
Well, everybody knows Tom. Tom will make it work no matter what the decision is within the spectrum of what you've been presented this evening. With the caveat that if you do decide to do the maximum amount, as I explained earlier, he will be refunding our water, sewer, and stormwater funds.
Should we go the opposite direction, though, we'll be gathering here again in December to talk about next year's levy, and I'm guessing that that figure would be impacted by any reduction in assessments
That is
we do
correct.
tonight.
Yep.
So the assessments could go down, but the tax levy we present in December could go up.
So the preliminary levy which the township set back in September was reflective of the maximum amount of assessments of $11,000, and we're at, I think the last one we had was at 11% with the goal of getting down to 7%. Through
It was
a
not
variety of
reflect-
other avenues.
No, but it was not reflective of the better bidding and the lower cost.
It's true.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. Just want to make
Okay,
that
well,
clear.
that's a big, that's a
It
big
is.
difference.
It will help. Yes.
All right, Steve, you got any thoughts?
Well, I'm a proponent of trying to lower the cost for individual assessments, but to what degree is my dilemma. I just I don't think lowering it to the very bottom is in the best interest either. But I think we can do better than 11. I guess I'm open to thoughts on that.
Scott?
I guess my simplistic view would be we initially thought with the feasibility of the 11,000 per unit would be roughly, it totaled up about 41% of the total cost. Well, we've since reduced that now by $750,000. So if we were to keep that 41-ish% on the new assessable amount, that would reflect a savings, but still be consistent
Yeah.
for future projects such as next year and the year after.
Good way to look at it.
And what's that, put that number at?
My rough calculation would be probably closer to about 8,200, 8,300.
And I think, Larry, that was your lowest.
That's accurate.
That is not reflective of any, and again, I'm looking, I think, Larry, one of the things that you mentioned was our initial feasibility report said the total project was $3,051,000. We've reduced that to about 2.3 or 750,000 in savings. However, when we first went with that initial estimate, the assessable costs were not $3,051,000. It was only $2.5 million, if I'm reading this correctly. And the projected final assessable costs are about 1.8 million, which is about a $700,000 difference. It's still a savings, it's a big number, but it's not 750. I just think that needs to be, I want to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly. But I still think it's about a 25% savings, and if you were to apply that, it's consistent on the percentages.
Steve?
His logic is there, it's consistent, I guess I'll say that.
Larry, does that number run the township cost up to that 864? Or you've got it on the funding sheet?
That,
You got township
yeah,
fund?
864, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So by dropping the assessments to 8,300, we ran up the township cost another 300,000. Or thereabouts, a little over 3.
Yep. Another option just to think about for kind of future projects is you could land on an amount, maybe it's 8,500, maybe it's 10,000, maybe it's 9,500, and then the next project is that same
Yep, and then build the.
figure. You could either do that same figure, or you could add a construction cost. There's every year the construction costs rise, and you could say it's whatever 9,000, and it's plus the rate of the construction increase over the next year. And there's documentation that you can refer to in the construction cost index that,
When we first started talking about the pavement plan, I mean, you're talking 10 years out. Did we start with the bigger projects and we're going to work toward, and I know everything was based on a life cycle. And we tried to choose those that were at a certain point in their lifestyle.
Yes.
Or,
Lifestyle.
life cycle.
We don't make judgments here.
Work with me here, man. So are these the bigger projects and we're going to start seeing smaller ones? Or are we going to start ramping up for even bigger ones? Or are we going to just?
no, we try to keep our projects balanced in terms of their impact to the levy each year. And so we try to balance the projects to be right around that $2 to $3 million each. But when we came up with the pavement program, it was based on the condition.
Right.
So the
Yep.
worst condition roads are in our 10-year program. So it didn't matter, whether it was a neighborhood with larger homes or smaller homes. It was just based on the road conditions itself. And that was the basis of the prioritization of the projects. And then we try to keep the projects in that 2 to 3 million.
Okay, I see. Okay, all right. So that range, 2 to 3 million each year, it's not, the costs aren't going to be, the annual costs aren't going to be dependent on the project itself. It's what projects can we fit into that 2 to 3 million bucket this year?
Mhm.
Okay, I got you now.
And that was an attempt to kind of keep our levy
Yep.
consistent.
Okay, all right, this is how I came at it. Because we got good funding, because we got good bond funding, I feel more than, we need to pass this savings on to the residents, all residents, not just the effective assessments. You guys will get the bulk of it, but I'm looking at a number that would also help reduce township costs, would help reduce the rest of the residents in the township. So with that analysis, if we made the number 9,000, that drops what the town ran up from 300 down to 100. And that gets more palatable to me. Steve, I don't know how that thinking goes.
Funny you said that, because I had written down 9,000.
It's almost it's a little over 18% difference. So then theoretically, when we do have the final levy discussion, it won't be quite as big of a jump.
That's true.
I don't know, you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I am. And I think you made it very clear to the individuals, if they think that their home is not even assessed to that level, the only way to do it is to appeal.
Right, and we're not going to make everybody happy
No.
with this decision.
And I don't know what, you mentioned cost of appraisal. I mean, what's a rough home appraisal cost? If you're just,
Well, for this kind of assessment, more like about $1,000.
$1,000.
These are a lot more detailed than your standard refi appraisal, okay? They're a lot more intensive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. The average appraisal for a refi or a new mortgage is probably, what, $350, $500? I haven't refied in a while, so I don't really know, but I think that's about standard.
Yeah.
No, these are more intensive, so really it's about double the cost.
Mainly because you're going to take this thing to court, so you're going to have a little bit more specifics. And
That's right. I mean, I gotta tell you, I just did one for a commercial project. It was $10,000 for the appraisal. And we settled that thing before we even got to court, before we even finished the appraisal. So they're not cheap.
Right, but back to your point,
Yeah.
that
Yeah, back to my point, I guess on the individual, I think 9,000 it's a win-win for everybody, because we are gonna get it on both sides. The other part that I wanted to say was about the individuals, that, if you don't think your value is even at that amount, you gotta go through the other process. That's just the way it has to be. We can't
and I don't think
satisfy all of them.
9,000 or 8,300 is going to sway one way or the other, so.
No. So,
All right, will that work with you, Scott?
Works for me.
All right, any other further discussion, questions?
No.
And again, just to be perfectly clear, what the township attorney has stated here, please sign out on your way out.
Well, actually, do it right now before the
Yes.
resolution's even adopted, because that's really the way the statute reads, is you gotta do it before the resolution's even adopted. So,
Because we're about to do that.
yeah, so we can stop, we can do it. And just to understand that, I'm the person that unfortunately is gonna be dealing with any appeals. I'm a reasonable guy, so
Well,
keep that in mind
for the residents.
for the residents, yeah. So,
So has everybody signed in? That would be the sheet right there. Did you
All right,
guys?
hearing no,
Right.
only if you want to appeal.
The gentleman decide this next moment. I don't have to sign.
Well, keep in mind, if you appeal it, if you sign the appeal now, you can always decide, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, and just tell us no.
Yeah. It doesn't cost you a penny to go sign the thing right now.
That's okay. I like you. I don't need to.
Not everyone says that, by the way. I appreciate it.
okay, back to business.
Yes.
All right, hearing no other discussion, I would look for a motion to adopt the resolution for the assessments.
I'll move to adopt the resolution for the assessment, last time before I say it, for $9,000 per unit. Is it per unit? That's,
Yes.
yeah.
Do you have to call out the fact that it's the 20 improvement? 20?
Sure, I'll
Yeah, we should identify the
probably do
project.
that, so it's very clear. It's for the improvement 2020-1.
I will second that motion.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, folks. Appreciate it. All right, let's move on.
You can just put that on the table.
Item 7B,
Thanks.
we got a stormwater pollution prevention program. I believe this is also a public hearing. Let me see if I can catch up.
No one
here.
wants to stay for the stormwater improvement hearing?
Really excited.
That's what we're trying to avoid. Thanks.
Good night.
I did tell the Utility Commission they should attend this. Hopefully, they're watching on television.
All right. I gotta find out where I left off here.
7B, public hearing.
All right, this is also a public hearing, so I need another motion to waive.
I'll make a motion to waive the reading that's been properly published.
A second? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? That motion carries. I gather this is you again, Larry?
Yes,
I need a
thank you.
motion to open up the public hearing.
I'll move to open up the public portion of the hearing.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, Larry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Town Board. Each year, we have this assessment hearing for our stormwater pollution prevention program. We started doing this, starting this program back in 2004 when the MPCA was issued a permit to the township. With the reauthorization in 2013, we had to develop our stormwater pollution prevention plan. So each year we do this public hearing. And at this hearing, we're going to discuss the many things that is required in the permit, but also, the good stewardship we do for the township, including the public hearing tonight, the other public outreach, including the items that our township website related to stormwater education, and we also team with Rice Creek Watershed District and the Vadnais Lakes Area Water Management Organization. There's a lot of good information for residents on their websites as well. Part of the program is keeping our maps updated, so our GIS mapping is updated annually. We have stormwater ordinances that are passed as a part of this and updated as well. We inspect our stormwater system. Each year we do about a fifth of the township storm sewer system. We perform street sweeping, have spring cleanup day, and many of these things we would do anyway. It's just a matter of our documentation with the stormwater pollution prevention program. And we also do projects, and we did a number of projects that are listed in your packet, including cleaning our culverts, stormwater improvements on Stillwater Street, Portland Avenue, catch basin repairs that we did in 2019 with that street project, White Bear Parkway, Gilfillan Court, Weston Woods Drive, Parkview Drive, Fenway, and the Hobie area. We also reestablished sediment ponds in the township, and we're underway with one in Deerwood Meadows that was recently approved, and Libel Street drainage improvements are underway now as well. So those are a number of the items we've undertaken this year, and we have others on the list, the list is included in your packet. One of the benefits of this hearing, maybe not for the people in the audience because there aren't any remaining, but out on the airwaves is things that
lonely.
are things that any resident can do, and I like to categorize them in maybe 4 categories. It's salt or chloride use, the phosphorus that impairs our water, erosion, and then other chemicals. So things we can do. We're entering the winter season. I see some areas where people just salt the heck out of their sidewalks, and it's just over salting. If residents can curtail that, or even once things have melted and dried off a bit, they sweep up the excess and reuse it. Those are ways we can keep that salt from getting into our water systems. Salt, once it gets in your water system, it doesn't go away. It's not consumed like phosphorus can be. You just can't get it out of your water. So each year, as salting occurs on residential properties or even on the streets, that salt eventually makes its way to the water system, and it just ratchets up the salt content in our waters. Phosphorus is another. Phosphorus comes from decomposition of leaves and grass clippings and other sources. And if we can, sweep up our grass clippings or blow them back into the yard so they don't make their way down the curbs or streets into the storm sewer system, that can help keep that phosphorus level lower. That phosphorus leads to algae blooms in our water systems. This is a lake community. We all have pride in the lakes and use the lakes, or like driving by and seeing a nice clean lake. Well, if we can do things, keep our grass clips, maybe you don't dump them, maybe take them to the compost center, or have your own composting on your property. I see where people maybe dump them next to a wetland. Well, that's the worst thing you can do, because that's going to go right into the wetland. That wetland leads to other downstream water bodies. So it's phosphorus. Erosion, if you're doing a project, if you're doing some landscaping project, controlling the sand and dirt that might run downstream. Phosphorus attaches to sediment, and that adds to not only silting in the lake and creating cloudy waters, but also it adds phosphorus as well. And then some other tips for chemicals. If you have a car that's maybe older and leaking, maybe you park that one in the garage so you can clean up. Because if you park it outside and it rains, that water's going to wash that oil or transmission fluid downstream. Try to limit your use of pesticides and fertilizers, because that can also make its way down to the water system. Properly clean and dispose of your paint and chemicals, so those aren't going into our water system. So those are 4 categories where any resident can help in making sure our stormwater remains clean.
Larry, where do you recommend dropping gutter downspouts? Is it better to put it in the yard versus have it on your driveway and it just runs to the storm?
Yes. The roof drainage is considered clean. It's not accumulating.
But leaves and stuff come out of those things.
The leaves come out of there, so I always say it's better to go to a grass area. It slows the migration of water to the system, and it can also help with feeding your lawns and you know, another item is try to limit your water use, your irrigation use on your yards. Some people, I still see it where it's raining and you see the irrigation system going, and that's another way that a resident can assist, is you know, putting a rain sensor on your irrigation system, or simply turning it off when you know it's gonna rain. So I like to use this opportunity for this public hearing to kind of express some of these ideas or ways that any resident can help. Because it's up to all of us to keep our water system clean.
Well, water is expensive, and the better we take care of it, the more we can hold the cost down on it, so. Got anything else?
No, and so, you know, it's part of the process here is to open the public hearing, take any comments, and then close the public hearing. It's a housekeeping item that we need to do every year.
Any questions, O'Leary?
I have none.
I have none.
All right, then I need a motion to open the public portion.
I'll move to open the public portion of the hearing.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone here to speak to that? Pretty quiet out there.
I'm gonna go out in the parking lot and see if I can rustle anybody.
I'll move to close the public portion. of the hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right. Is this just a formality, or do you need a formal motion to accept the presentation?
I think it was just to hold the public hearing, so I
Okay.
think you're good.
Thanks, Larry.
All right.
Good job.
Okay, and then moving on, we have another public hearing. This is for SMC at 5800 Centerville Road.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is only asking to continue the continuation of this hearing to one of our April meetings coming up.
Yeah.
Wetland work is completed, but our town planner has asked that we continue this to the spring.
Do you have a date or not?
I believe it's in the
April
resolution.
16th.
Yep.
All right.
Actually, it says.
21.
Continue public hearing to April 16th, 2020.
Oh, yeah, should be 21.
21.
Just so we're clear, this is just simply for a wetland mitigation plan?
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, do I have a motion to reflect that?
I'll make a motion to, to continue the hearing for the wetland permit to allow filing and mitigation for SMC 5800 and 5858 Centerville Road to a public hearing for April 16th, 2021 at 7:00 PM.
I will second that motion.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 That motion passes. All right, moving on, we have item under new business, 8A, 5253 Eagle Street, the demolition removal of the Township property house.
We are just looking for the board to receive and award the quote based upon the Public Works Director's recommendation that will seal off our Eagle Street project with White Bear Lake Fire Department.
Any questions of the board?
Not for me.
There's, we're not planning on putting anything in there.
Not right now.
Okay.
No.
Actually, this is one of the very few times where the bids were all somewhat competitive,
Very
too.
competitive. Yes.
All right, so then with no questions, I need, the first motion is to receive all the quotes.
Based on staff review and recommendation, I move that we receive the quotes.
Have a second?
A second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
And
We should have a recommendation to the EDAB as to what, or suggestions we might have for the property in the next coming months. We're trying to find out some of the variables associated with TIF funding that was used there, so.
okay.
All right, now that you've been interrupted,
I'm sorry.
Supervisor
Broke
McHugh.
my routine
I should have
once.
said that before.
You broke my routine earlier, caught me totally
That's
off
for all the other
guard.
questions you asked when you pretend I'm Dale.
But you're so much more experienced than I.
My bad.
Based on staff review and recommendation, I moved that we approve the quote from Nitti Roloff in the amount of $13,454 with funding from the EDA fund.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? That motion carries. All right, we have no added agenda items, and everyone has left us for open time?
Oh,
I think we had one added agenda item, Mr. Chair,
We
the
did?
Polar Lakes.
Oh, yes, the Polar Lakes
the restroom.
restrooms, yeah.
That's right.
Wait, that was in this, Wasn't that in the consent agenda? We added that as item, one of the items in the consent agenda.
Oh, was it?
Item 5I,
Yeah,
Park
Park
Board
Board.
recommendation
Yeah.
regarding the restroom.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, it's in there. Don't freak me
Okay.
out, Larry. I'm barely holding on as it is.
Better we
man.
know than not.
That's true. Yep.
All right, moving on then, I need a motion to receive agenda materials and supplement.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, all opposed, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, folks.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:30.
Did,